Minnesota Vikings fans, welcome back to the Purple People Eaters podcast. He's Aaron, I'm Chris, and we're here to somewhat unfortunately talk some Vikings football. You know, my co-host picked the game. I love the points. So really, at the end of the day, no one should be shocked. I mean, this is the Vikings, but it still sucks. I mean, there's no way around it, especially to the Lions, who is actually, way worse of a franchise than us if you look at it. I mean, we think we've been struggling and hurting. Man, you can feel for Detroit, but when you're 0-10-1 and you get the dub, of course, in dramatic fashion. I mean, this is the Vikings this year, but what else would it be? But yes, we are going to briefly, compared to our other shows, talk about this here L. And what does it mean long-term for Zimmer and possibly Spielman? Is that a 1-2 punch or not? Obviously, we were in control at the higher seed, I guess you could say, on the wild card. And now that's even, now we're a game out of that. Like it's just all sorts of bad. But we're going to break it down. Quick turnaround, though, at home against the Steelers. And Vegas has us winning the game. And I've even, saw some other folks who do this for a living picking the Vikings. It is kind of funny. They've been on this 2-2 thing, kind of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, win 2, lose 2, win 2, lose 2. Well, I guess maybe Vegas is going on that pattern and saying, hey, they're gonna bounce back and get a dub. But we're gonna get into this, preview all that. We'll talk a little bit of Gophers at the end of the Gophers did get a bowl game, and they're in the process of finalizing a contract for a new offensive coordinator, yada, yada, yada. We did get a little bit of news for Senior Bowls, so we'll talk about some of that stuff. But if this is your first time listening to the Purple People Eaters podcast, welcome. It's available in a variety of ways. You can go to blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. It streams live there. But, like I said, you don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope and download the show directly there or listen to the browser. You can find it on the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, tune in. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to the GruelingTruth.com. And one more thing, there's a Spricker page called Living in Loserville. It's Vikes and Gophs, right? Just like this, it is this show. But we also go to the Timberwolves and Gophs too, which will be starting in January sometime. But that's Living in Loserville Spricker. That's Aaron set that page up over a year ago. Check it out. And he has some other podcasts too that you might like. Living in Loserville Spricker. One more thing. If you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called Direct TV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99. The best of live TV and on demand. No annual contract. No hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice or Ultimate package, that gives you 3 free months of HBO Max. You get to enjoy regional sports networks without the additional fee, which has become more and more an issue on your standard cable. And if you go all the way to the Premier package, that's HBO Max and Showtime included in the price. That's Direct TV Stream. Okay, let's bring in Aaron. And some of this just feels good to have a podcast to vent this stuff being a Vikings fan. But it's one of those, it is what it is. And if anybody's shocked, well, they shouldn't be, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, though, I think some people are shocked, which is, I find surprising. I just had a feeling about it when I called it last week, and I didn't know about the injuries beyond maybe Peterson not being back and maybe another one, but I didn't see the defense that we fielded against Detroit. I didn't see that at all coming. I just thought there'd be a letdown after they got their butts whipped in San Francisco, and that was my basic rationale for saying that Detroit would win. But then, turn on the TV, look at the defense, and I said, oh, okay, well, here we are. This is about right. And, had Pierce back. Tomlinson was there. Didn't seem to make much of a difference in the run game. I thought maybe early it did, but later it was a problem. And, it just kind of is what it is, like you said. I mean, this is the Vikings at the current moment. You take it or leave it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, right off the bat, this type of loss to an 0-10-1 team, now 1-10-1, is this pretty much sealed the deal for Zimmer being gone? Given unless he just wins 4 in a row and they get into the second round or some shit like that. But other than that, reality, is this pretty much it for Zimmer?
I think it is. As much as I've been a fan of Zimmer up until maybe the last couple of seasons when the defense, he's had problems with injuries on his defense a lot, but it just seems like there's nothing innovative going on there, and it's kind of running the same old thing over and over again with the same old players and bringing old players back, and inability to use some of the 39 draft picks that Spielman has brought him, and those guys don't see the field except for in emergencies, and it seems to be hard on rookies and kickers, and I just feel like 8 years, Chris, and it's kind of run its course now. That's not to say if I wouldn't be behind the team next year if Zimmer's still the coach, but I just feel like it's run its course, and it's like you need a new set of eyes in there maybe to look at the players and to look at, the whole overall thing. Could just use a facelift, and I think that's probably the reason they will use to get rid of Zimmer whenever they decide to do it.
Yeah, it is. It's a super bummer to have the amount of injuries he has on defense. We can talk about reasons, we can talk about excuses and all that, but clearly the last 2 years there's been some major. Just Hunter alone, when you look at the numbers with him on the field and not, he's this year because he wasn't even on the field last year. I guess long term, if he can stay healthy for the next couple seasons, we won't have to crazy extend him and be the number one D end. So it is legit. Like, even without some key players, like major key players, we were still going into this week number 1 in sacks, tied, top 5 in pressures. So I did think this defense felt better than last year, but still not good enough to go out there and hold tight in some games. They had a stretch there, like 3 out of 4 games against Cleveland and some other games where they did look like, okay, they're starting to gel, but then, Peterson goes out with a hammy, Hunter goes down, blah, blah, blah. We know Griff's probably not going to see the field this year again. Hopefully he's doing okay, but yeah, it just sucks because I still think this year when you lead in sacks and you're up there in pressures, you're still doing pretty good. But yeah, this is the league, and this is what happens. A lot of good to very good to even great coaches do get fired if you haven't, at least gone to the Super Bowl. And even though we haven't seen a head coach since we've been around go to the Super Bowl, it is what it is. 8 years. I think you're right about just a fresh face. The one thing, though, I'll say is the whole, trade everyone, rebuild the whole team. To me, first of all, this isn't 5-position basketball, okay? Like, you're not going to trade the whole team. Like, what? First of all, some of these guys have 3 to 5 years left. That's a long time in the NFL and football. Why in the hell would you trade the whole team? And the funny thing is, Aaron, when people say this, right? First of all, that's not realistic. It's the same people that wanted to can Zimmer a month ago during a season that makes no sense, But the funny thing is, a lot of these people are saying, well, Jefferson is gonna want to get traded because of the Diggs thing. So you're telling me he's going to be – if we trade almost everyone that's, top notch, Pro Bowl or pro – well, whatever, top of line, all pro level or right there, you think he's going to want to stay for 2 or 3 years in the rebuild? It's literally knee-jerk, take my ball and go home, kick rocks, just mad, like a little kid mad because his little pancake fell off and he's going to two-hand – pound the thing, just like last week, that dude that did that to Thielen. That's what makes me laugh. So you want to rebuild the whole thing? I think this is like a partial rebuild. I don't think we need to. First of all, you can't trade 12 players, and expect that it just doesn't. That's not how it works in the NFL. But I do kind of laugh at trade the whole team except Jefferson, like he'd want to stay for 3 years of rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of knee-jerk going on right now, but, there's a lot of good players on this team. And, they've been in Mike's system for most of their careers, Barr, Kendricks, even Harrison Smith, and there's probably a few others that have just been Everson Griffin as well. I think he had some few years with some previous coaches, but, and now those guys are aging. They're getting more injury prone. They're still signed to contracts, which that kind of leads into my talk about Spielman here. And I'm more interested if you have to choose one or the other between Zimmer and Spielman, I think I'd side with a new general manager at this point. Although I think it would do good to get both of them gone, because I think,
sure,
if you get rid of Zimmer and keep Spielman, you're kind of like, just putting lipstick on a pig at this point. And, if you want to get a fresh set of eyes and a new look and for the organization, I think you've got to kind of do both of them. And, Spielman's done some things with the Cousins signing and then not being able to draft a quarterback and, 29,000 draft picks and mostly in the 7th round. But I just think it's time to.
Don't forget about those 6-runners too, Aaron. I mean.
Yeah, he stacks those up as well. He's a good general manager. I mean, if he went to Detroit, I think he could help in Detroit. But I just think things have run their course here. And it's not that Zimmer's a bad coach or Rick's a bad GM. It's just that, I think we kind of peaked in 2017, Chris, and it's just been kind of piecing parts together ever since that and trying to, keep that window open. And this window's kind of shut, I think, pretty much good. I mean, I called in the beginning of the season at 5 wins. I think we'll probably get somewhere around 7, but I'm not thinking too much on, overall record here. I'm just thinking the way the team looks, the way the roster looks, there's not a lot of depth, although we've had thousands of draft picks. It just doesn't seem like things are trending in the right direction. And as far as trading people, like you said, that's just nonsense. I mean, you can trade maybe someone here or there, pick up a guard or something, but
sure,
you're not going to get rid of some of these guys in their contracts. I mean, you're going to be lucky if you could even manage to get away from some of those contracts if you want to. So I don't know. I think people are just kind of like, reality is set in for them, and what they thought they saw, they weren't seeing, and all the propaganda in the world is not going to, make a 5-7 team feel like a Super Bowl contender. That's just not how things work.
The offensive line with the current GM beyond that 2017 when we went out and got some free agents and whatnot, one of them stayed for a while, Riley. Ever since we've documented, we're not going to go over the 19 different guards we tried and all that. We played a little musical chairs this week too. Hey, you know what? We're way into the season. We're like 3/4 in the season. Why don't we take boy who's been on the right side struggling and put him on his first start in the left tackle? It's just like, come on, dude. Are we trying to mentally break this? Is this torture for this guy, Udo? Like, he seems like a nice guy off the field. Do we really need to put him towards that? But anyway, I really think though it has.
No, not anyway. Because I don't understand, man. I just don't get this offensive line for like the last 4 years. Like, what is going on?
That's been it.
It's like you got Udo, who got him, as a serviceable guard or less than, but that's what he was doing. You've got Cleveland, who's a lifelong left tackle, and you decide to move Udo not only to a different position, but to the other side of the line, and then stick Bradbury back in there and move Mason Cole. It's just, I don't understand it, man. Like, how do you sell that to a reasonable person? It's like, okay, this is what we're doing this week. We're going to throw Bradbury back in, move Cole over a spot, take Udo and move him over left. All of us are just like, what? There's a ton of other options. I put Blake Brandel in at left tackle and see how he does. I just think that they're so stuck on, like, these are the starters. Let's make them work.
Get the best five out there.
Get the 5 yeah, it's just ridiculous, man. And all these kids that come through, we got beat by a kicker we picked up as an undrafted free agent. And I'm sitting there going, hey, this kid could probably be our kicker, this Riley Patterson, right? No, we go with Greg Joseph instead of Riley Patterson. He bounces around, goes to New England, gets swooped off the practice squad by Detroit, and ends up beating us. It's like, come on, man. Like, what's going on here? I don't understand it in some ways. It's like, I think
he could have thrown that last ball. The guy was so wide open, by the way. The kicker could have thrown
probably.
That ball.
I mean,
but you're right. Just to keep honing in on this offensive line, like I said, we're not going to list all the guards we've tried, interior people, but time and time again, since that 2017 and those 2 injuries we've talked about, we haven't been able to do it. And, the first knee jerk is going to be like, oh, Cousins' contract next year. We all know if that's the cap number, that's the issue. We beat that horse dead. We know that. He's either not going to be on the team or it's going to be extension. That's what I kind of thought the whole time. That's what most people kind of thought. We'll get to that point when that time happens, right? But this year, up until a few weeks before the season, we had 13 to 14 million to spend. We went spend happy this year on the defense, right? The year before, we had 10 million, and guards for 10 million are damn good guards. We had $10 million. We decided to give it to a safety that is no longer here. We could have signed 3 years ago. We could have signed Sheldon and a guard instead of Anthony Barr. So the money to sit there and blame, because that's what people do. Oh, it's the contract. Well, the cap number only gets super fucked up till next year. So actually, it's been, and it's not like they haven't drafted, right? I mean, they've been drafting their ass off at that position lately. Hey, they've been trying to do it, but sometimes you got to bring in a vet. Even 2019, bringing in that right guard, he was maybe a tad bit up from, like a good guard. And he, you could see during the game, oh wow, he cleared a hole there, and that type of thing. And until he got hurt, then we kind of went back down at that position and haven't been able to fill it. That's the biggest thing, like the depth on defense. A couple of weeks ago when we had even more people out, the defense turned in a really good performance. So I can't sit there and say it's just depth. Last year it was depth on the line, no doubt. Not so much this year per se, but overall that line has really been holding us back over and over again. And, in the first half, it was rough. It was rough sailing on both sides of the ball, especially offense. They didn't score. It would have been nice to get one of those touchdowns, 10 instead of 6 points. Start to add that up. That's pretty easy. I think they had 5 or 6 QB hits in the first half. They were on pace to get 13 tackles for loss in the first half. That's on some college Alabama against a weak team type stuff. But I got to give them credit. They did turn it around, the offense in general. But the offensive line did play better, even though they had the musical chairs type thing. Thielen, that was tough too. Thielen went out. I think that had some of our struggles too, especially in the red zone, in that first half anyway. Of course, a high ankle sprain. But Jefferson, they found I got to give him credit looking at that route tree again. This guy, ran so many different routes, and it was nice to see him on the move so he wouldn't just get doubled and bracketed. I got to give him credit there. And in the second half, Jefferson, Cousins, we even started running the ball a little bit better in the second half. The defense, though, had issues. And then once they started applying pressure in the second half, all of a sudden, we're starting to do really good. Before we get anything, the final drive of the second half stuff, all that, well, I guess this would still be in the second half. Let's visit the 2-point conversion. Obviously, the stuff I just talked about, you can fill in the blanks there too if you want, Aaron, if you're wanting to say something there. But going for the first 2-point conversion, first of all, to be fair, 2-point conversions at that time even the analytics say don't do it. But there was really no point in doing it there. I shouldn't say no point because, yeah, you could say, oh, we'd only be down a field goal. But I just said the word field goal in Vikings. So is it a 40-yarder or is it a 28? Because that makes a difference too. But two things, Aaron. One, going for the two right away, that all of a sudden we had to go for three of them. And then the play calls out of 2 out of 3 of them, sure, we're at the 1 because of that penalty, and you run, but the interior shit, how long we've been talking about the interior offense on short yardage, it's been rough. What'd you think about going for it at 20-15, needing to get only down by a field goal in the third quarter, mind you?
I mean, I thought it was an aggressive move, and that's what we've been asking for a lot of the season. And, you know, the problem is with it is if you miss it, now you've got yourself in a treadmill here of trying to get those points back. And that's what happened. And, you know, the play calling, Chris, it's just, what's the adjective? I mean,
it's so hit or miss too, dude. It's just away from drive to drive. You're like, what is this offense now?
You think you get your best stuff for 2-point conversions, right? Right. That's the aces in your pocket or whatever.
Right. Ham. Oh, sorry.
But you end up just a lot of window dressing on the same thing, a trap run up the middle. It's like, okay, well, you can send a bunch of guys in motion and you can do a bunch of stuff, but everybody knows that what you think is your best play is obviously some trap right or left up the middle to the running back. And it's kind of odd because a lot of times you see those plays, you see really innovative plays and you just don't see them. Like, and you've got speed on your team. Wongwu can get the edge, man. If you put him on a reverse or do something trickier, God, for all, you know, you really want to throw him off, throw the ball. It's just tendencies and, you know,
since you're already in shotgun most of the time in those plays too, you know, which is another, like, really, dude, at the 1 we're going shotgun or no?
Yeah, and it's like, well, okay, so let's say you're innovative in the window dressing, but, you know, at the point of attack in the play, you're just weak and you're almost played by yourself. It's like, okay, you know, let's say they get that first 2-point conversion. Well, then, you know, they got what they wanted. They probably don't necessarily have to go for the others, but you missed the first one and now you're chasing points, like I said earlier. And it's just like, you don't have the plays for it, obviously. And, you know, whatever happened to a fade ball, you know, to the back of the end zone, just something, you know, it boggles the mind at how inept it can be from the 2-yard line. Sometimes it's just unbelievable.
Well, I'll say this. I was against going for it early. That's just something I stand by. We're not the greatest show on turf. You know, that's really the only team that I can think of that went for that many 2-point conversions. But I thought it was silly. No doubt there is a time to be aggressive, and we were in this game. But we were over-aggressive, and we'll get to another point too. Because there's no point. I kind of think, like, to the people that just knee-jerk, like, it's not that we didn't go for the 2, it's only the play call. To me, a lot of those people grew up in heavy video game Madden. Now, you know, video games had just started to change once we were teenagers and getting to our 20s, started to get more detail, and sports video games started blowing up. But the culture wasn't like the culture, it wasn't as popular as today. And I mean that by going for stuff on a Madden game that is not real in football terms. And even the analytics will tell you not to go for it, you know, in that score, in that range. We're not even in the fourth quarter. There's no point in really doing that. So I think that was silly. I also think, once again, it's good to be aggressive. It's great to be aggressive sometimes. But when you're 4th and 10, there's really, I was like, there's a time to be aggressive, no doubt. But that, for me, that was a very silly thing at the end of, especially when I know Zimmer lately has been like, well, we're going to be aggressive and Kirk, throw a pick because we'll just stop you on the defense. No, you won't. No, you won't. You will not stop them on the defense this year. Now, I'm not blaming it on Zimmer. These last 2 years, the defense has been freaking ridiculous, no doubt. I mean, it does suck. In fact, the Vikings 2 minutes defense closing in on historic lows, according to Courtney Cronin. And worst in points allowed in final 2 minutes of a half, 101. The most points allowed in the final 2 minutes of a half in the last 20 seasons is 107. You know when that record was set? It was set by the Minnesota Vikings in 2020 because we knew that was even a worse defense. So we still got time. It looks like we may go over that, but I didn't like either. The 4th and 10 to me, sure, it only led to a field goal, but the 4th and 10 to me felt like it was beyond desperation. And I know the scoreboard, but I think that's a silly 4th and 10. 4th and 4, 4th and 3, but 4th and 10, I didn't like that call either.
Well, I mean, is there ever a 4th and 10 that you like? I mean, that's really the question here. And I think a little overconfidence.
That's true. I don't like any 4th and 10. That's a good point.
Yeah. Like overconfidence, I think maybe is probably the biggest problem here in himself. And I'm speaking of Zimmer here, in himself and in his defense, his scheme, and also in his players, particularly the ones he had on the field on Sunday. I can't think of anything more. It's kind of like, just you feel like you're going to push and push and push, and sooner or later it's going to break, but you just don't have the parts this year to do the things that you like to do. And then, your alternative to that, Chris, is, playing weak and soft. And I mean that, schematically,
Sure.
Your corners are 10 yards off the receiver, and they're just getting hitched all day. And it's just, I think it's a confluence of events here that's just snowballing, and there's really not a lot they can do. Now, they are still playing, tough. It's not like you're not visibly, giving up. I don't know all their assignments, so I don't know who's blowing assignments and so on. But,
Sure.
It seems like they're still in the games. It's just, it's those runs on first down, Chris, that I've been talking about for 3 years. It's the, inability for your corners to match up man to man or even know what they're doing in a zone. It's kind of being out schemed offensively. There's a lot of stuff going on with this defense, and I'm mostly upset. My number one upset thing about this is just the rotation of young players over older players. And I've talked to you off air about this a lot, but, on air, I haven't said much because they've been playing relatively well, but there's some talent that's come and gone that hasn't seen the field. There's some talent that needs to see the field. And now I'm not saying that some of the young guys we're playing right now are playing gangbusters. Don't get me wrong here. But, either are the old guys. And so I'd rather side with the young ones and potential than, let's see if this guy's got another year in him or 2 years in him. I guess that's where I sit on it. And that's my biggest real concern with the franchise at the moment. And I know it's kind of off topic, but I slipped it in there because it's an annoying thing to me that you bring Everson Griffin back and you had other guys that you're trying to get better, and he's just taking snaps. And I'm not trying to pick on Everson. He did when he was in, he did pretty well.
Yeah, he wasn't just taking snaps. He was second on the team in pressures and sacks.
Yeah.
He was
just getting,
good, for $1 million in 1 year. I don't know.
I mean, how many games did you get out of him? 5, 6, 7, something like that. I mean.
Well, I think it's more than 5. It was only 2 weeks that he went out. My point is, when you're leading the lead in sacks and you're third in pressures, I'm not worried about the young defensive ends not getting as much playing time. Could they get more? I agree with that. And look, we have seen a couple of these guys that got that playing time last year, to your point, and now have all of a sudden looked pretty damn good this year. They've taken that jump, especially on the interior. So you do, I see what you're saying. I guess I'm halfway through that.
And I don't mean to just stick on the Griffin point. I mean, it's re-signing Barr. It's re-signing Harrison Smith. It's these type of moves, bringing back Stephen Weatherly, like these kind of things that are just like, all right, dude, we saw him the first time. Shamar Stephan was on this team for, I have no idea why, for 4 or 5 years. It's like,
but dude, you were in favor of the Barr re-signing,
though. I think at the time I was, but that's a healthy, younger Anthony Barr. It's a different story now, I think. But yeah, I think I was.
Either way, it was either Sheldon or him, and then we could have got an offensive line. Sheldon in an offensive line or Barr was our choice. We overpaid him is what happened there. No doubt about it. I think Harrison Ford. Hey, Harrison Ford could play. We got to get him minutes. No, but Harrison Smith last year kind of proved it to me that he's still there because after that defensive line fell apart, because we didn't get shit for pressure last year. I think that's why we're actually look like a good defense throughout some of these games. But either way, the offense and the defense, complementary football, should we say, Aaron? Something that we haven't been able to do this year. They sure did for a while. I mean, you look at it, 4 out of the 5 drives that the offense had, they scored field goal, touchdown. Some of them long drives, some of them quick scores. And same with the offense or defense, punt, 3 and out, punt. Field goal, held them, got a key interception, got a key sack and fumble that set up a touchdown. Until we were down. What were we down? 20-6. If this wasn't Detroit, remember I talked about we're going to get our ass kicked and we're going to kick someone's ass just because historically you kind of do that throughout a year. If this wasn't the Lions, Aaron, this would have been the game that we would have got our ass kicked. But they were feeling it this year. But we're down 20-6, and I give both sides, especially the offense, but both sides the credit for coming all the way back. And you get up 27-23. A lot of folks all of a sudden, once again, knee-jerk, no difference, just pure emotion, Aaron, just mad at the world and at the Vikings, and we suck. And we get it. We get it. But they're literally saying we should have milked the clock and went for the field goal and left 40 seconds or 45 seconds. But what they're not remembering is it was a tied game when we did that to the Packers. It was a tied game. So we're going into overtime with whether we make that field goal or not. Whereas this, we had to score to get up. And then they just need a field goal. To me, if you got a chance to score a touchdown in that scenario, I was okay with it. And off the defense, how it had been doing, it was doing great. But then they decided to only pressure one time on that last drive, Aaron. And you know what? It almost resulted in a strip stack by Harrison coming off the edge. He almost got to that ball. And then Breeland, two hands Breeland will call, the guy that can only make the immaculate reception on an interception, 2 hands on the ball in the end zone, game over. And, of course, that didn't come down. But that was a bit of a head-scratcher. Talk about some of that. Like, we're pressuring really well in the second half. Decide not to do it, give the under routes, a bunch of different routes, and then not even on the last play. Talk about that last play, too, positioning. If you're going to drop 8, why are we worried about the back of the end zone when no one's running there just yet?
Well, let's begin with Breeland. I think you nailed it in the beginning of the season. You said he's feast or famine, and that's what he's been throughout the season. And, if it hits him in the chest, he's not going to catch it. If he has to run 4 yards and dive, he's going to get it. And I think the whole last drive was just Mike's standing in a square saying, I'll stop the defense. And about scoring, I thought maybe you could have milked a little bit more time off the clock. I don't necessarily think you just say, we're going to kick a field goal here considering Minnesota Vikings kickers, but you do probably try to bleed a little bit more time off that clock. Although, Mike's going to always have faith in his defense. And even the kids he had out there on Sunday, it's like, dude, it's like, these are not Kendricks. This is not Barr. This is not, the guys that you want in there for this. And it's like, you don't have Danielle Hunter. He's not one of your 3 rushers. You've got a bunch of, Kenny Willekes and DJ Wanham and maybe a guy in the middle, and it's just not the same kind of pressure. And you're right, when they brought pressure, it was successful. I just think it's Mike standing and, he's going to go down with his boots on, as they say, and he's going to do what he does. And the last play, let's talk about that. We all saw it coming. We knew what was going to happen. I didn't know exactly what would happen, but when it happened, I said, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they had been playing off. And the thing that was really upsetting about it is they called a timeout. Detroit called a timeout after they checked the alignment. He didn't seem to change the alignment at all. And it's like 5 yards deep in the end zone is Cam Dantzler. And, I don't know, was at the 5-yard line or something. So it's 10 yards of difference. And anybody, high school coach would know to call a slant there. And or not a slant, but a hitch. And, slant probably would have worked too. I mean, Woods wasn't where he should have been to stop a slant, but I think, it just, I don't know. Do you tell the corners to play up on that? Yes. I mean, that's what you would do. I think you'd be right in their face. But I don't know. Mike would have been running that the whole way down the field. It's just, it blows my mind. I don't understand why you can't trust your corners, especially when you draft Dantzler as a press corner. And that was Mike's whole calling card for years, is Rhodes taught him how to be a press corner. And now your corners aren't pressing at all. I don't know where the change happened, but in the last 2 seasons, it's just been off coverage the whole time. And there have been teams that have come in and just hitched you to death. And, this time you got it the last play of the game. And I got to say, you deserved it. That's what you get when you don't play press coverage with your defense.
Well, last year we could at least say we didn't get any sacks barely. And we had as much sacks and pressures like 7 games in this year as we did last year. So, okay, you can make an argument not to do it last year, right? A bunch of young corners, that's cool, but I think you really laid that out nicely. And, it's not all about positioning, because somehow, some way, the other side of the defense was positioned the same way, but we got to put it on the players a little bit on this one. Cam had a great game, but Xavier Woods, man, the last month, Xavier Woods has been it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. And I am glad that we have a rookie safety, because maybe we now know why he's not with the Cowboys anymore after this last month or two. But either way, neither of them decided to even go near the goal line. The other side had 2 guys there. If you're going to drop 8 and rush 3, you had 2 guys on 1 guy there. There's just no excuse, whether it's the alignment or the players, because the other side of the players, they managed to get over there and get near the goal line, and at least hit them really hard and see if the ball comes loose or something. But that was rough. That was rough. Any other items you want to get to when it comes to this debacle in Detroit, sir?
No, I think we got most of it off our chest. I think, it sucks to lose to Detroit. It sucks to lose to Detroit when they're 0-10 and 0-10-1, I guess, is the record. And but I don't think anybody who's watched this team all season, and maybe for the last 2 seasons, was all that surprised. There's a lot of talk about, Cousins and blah, blah, blah. But the real reality here is that we haven't been over 500 in over 2 years, it seems like. So it kind of is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I still chuckle at these last 2 years, people blaming Cousins, because it's crazy at some of this stuff. But, either way, it is what it is. On the good note here, Jefferson, this frickin' guy, he had in the last 4 games, had a great start to the season, had those 2 back-to-back games that we really broke down, especially after the second one, where he wasn't getting enough targets. Boy, has he these last 4 games, he actually had the largest yardage stretch in Vikings history, 577. And it's kind of funny. The second place is actually 2009, our best offense since these last 2 years. 553, Sidney Rice. Carter, 537, 99. 03, 529, you know who, Randy Moss. He's on pace, Jefferson, to have 110 catches and 1,700 yards in double digits, man. And if you look at through your first 28 games as an NFL player, what he's been able to do in receiving touchdowns and receiving yards, this dude, you got to bring up, he's having a better start than Carter, Marvin Harris, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Johnson, Terrell Owens, Antonio Brown. Carter took a little while to catch on, but those other guys didn't. This guy is beyond special, and he has the last 2 years since he's been in the league. He has the most yards, 2,609. Devontae Adams is in the 2,400. Diggs 2-3, Coop 2-3, and Kelsey, of course, 2002. So 200. After that. So I'm trying to bring some good news here, after that horrible thing. But another thing, 44 catches of 20-plus yards since he's been in the league. He has 9 more catches of that than anybody in the league. And that goes for other big play offenses, too. So this kid is all about it. But, yeah, we'll still hear that it's barely the defense and it's mostly Cousins. Yada. Now, there is some decent news when it comes to something we've been really following this year, Aaron, the injury report. We do have, at least they were limited in it because it's a walkthrough practice, basically, but Barr and just as important, more important, Kendricks with that bicep injury. He was at least limited walking around and everything. Darisaw, no surprise there, unfortunately, didn't play, and same with Thielen as well. And Alexander, his rib issue, he did go full. So, hopefully we can get both Kendricks and Barr back for this week. Like I said earlier, Vegas has us as a 3-point favorite. Pittsburgh now actually had their best game of the season. Still probably should have lost the game, but hey, they won it. They're 6-5-1 now. Their strength of schedule hasn't been great, but like I said, they're coming in hot. 44.5 is the over/under. Vikes favored by 3. The Vikings clearly have a sizable difference in offense, whereas both defense kind of struggle. 131 they're giving up, the Steelers, on the ground, and they don't run. They're running the ball 87 yards per game. So we definitely need to run the ball more consistently the last couple of weeks. Cousins is up to 5th or 6th in attempts in the league. That's great. You got to pass more sometimes, no doubt. Every game's a little different, but we got to get back to some of our bread and butter with the run game as well. I don't see how this isn't, beyond what I said about we're going to get our ass kicked and kick someone's ass, I don't see how this isn't a super tight game. But, man, it is hard to pick a win here coming off that debacle that we just saw on Sunday, Aaron.
Couldn't agree more. I just couldn't agree more. I don't want to say the wheels are coming off here or anything like that, although it's very possible that they are. But it's, prime time. It's a home game. It's got all the makings of one of those Buffalo games or something like that. And, I want to feel good about it. And I want to say, they'll bounce back and, we lost 2, we won 2, we lost 2. And there's a lot of positive ways to spin it. I don't know if Cook's going to be back. I'm not sure what you did go down a little bit of the injury report.
He ain't going back. Not this week.
Thielen possibly out. I like KJ Osborne, but as a real number 2, I don't know how I feel about that. I think they're going to struggle offensively a little bit just due to the offensive line issues. And, the Steelers still have good defensive linemen. And you line them up against this offensive line at any time, it could get ugly very quickly, particularly if you leave Bradbury in there. So I'm just, as much as I want them to win this game, I don't see it happening, Chris. And I don't, like you go to Vegas with it or do whatever. I just don't see it happening. You say that, the Steelers can't run the ball, but they will this week. So
no, I'm saying they're average. Of course they're going to be able to run the ball this week. I'm just trying to, break down the game. They'll run the game or ball, no doubt.
Now, on a silver lining of it is the Vikings could come out and they could offensively turn another leaf over and score 30 and beat the Steelers at home, and all of us will be yay again. But it's still the same core of this team. It's still the same coach. It's still the same everything. And I just don't see a win here, Chris. I don't want to be doom and gloomy. I'm trying to find a bright spot, but Steelers are traditionally a tough team, and I just don't think we have it in us right now to beat them on a short week. And I know they're not great either, but the components they have, their strengths do not match up with our weaknesses, or they overmatch our weaknesses, I guess is what I wanted to say. Particularly the defensive line and offensive line. I just don't think this offense is going to be anywhere near consistent until that line is dealt with in a real substantive way. The musical chairs, the quality of talent, it's just not there, and it just gets exposed over and over again.
And I look at it from, without Thielen is the only reason why I look at it fully from an offensive standpoint, because these last 2 years, we haven't been losing games because of our offense on average. It's been our defense. And when we got this guy, Darrisaw, is he going to come back? We'll see tomorrow if he walks around or whatever and does a half walkthrough or something. But they got this guy, TJ Watt, who's coming off a 3.5 sacks. And he has 16 sacks in 10 games. So I don't think it's doom and gloom that you're putting out there whatsoever. He's actually on pace to potentially break that 24 record if you add it up, they were saying. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. And, if we had Darrisaw in there, I'd feel a lot more confident because, like I said, they don't stop the run that well. So if we could get that run game going, we obviously have the pass game going. If we could get that run game going, then all of a sudden the play action deep ball is just that much more attainable, consistently. And we've seen that, especially these last 2 years. We've talked about how, somewhere around mid-season to late season, maybe game 10 last year, they finally got off the line of scrimmage. And lately, it's actually, they've been like saying, all right, dude, let's see if you can run. And sometimes it's worked, sometimes it's not. But with no Thielen, it does kind of be like, high ankle sprain, he's not going to play. Can we do enough? This is where you like Irv Smith so much, because that would give you two tight ends you could target anytime or red zone. They can both block. But, yeah, I'm actually going with kind of a funky, what is it, funky score, 23-20, or no, what was it, 20, where the hell did I put it? 23-21. Steelers get the job done, and unfortunately beat these Vikings. Now we do have that 2-2 thing that we've been going on, and like I said, maybe Vegas and the professionals say, hey, they're just going to keep winning 2 and losing 2, winning 2, losing 2. So I feel pretty confident that they can be in the game. Why wouldn't you? They've been in every game, right? But the bloodshed has to come at some point. To your point about, maybe this is the week where they just get ran over, and when you're playing a good defensive end or a great defensive end like that, and no Thielen, man, it's a doozy. It is a doozy, man. Any other Vikings-oriented stuff, sir?
No, I think you nailed my points right there. I think it's going to be, I wouldn't say an ass kicking, but I think we're going to get beat pretty badly. I just don't see it being a good thing. I'd say, if I had to throw a score out there, I'd say like 28-10, something like that. It'll be a decisive win by the Steelers. Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be a decisive win by the Steelers, and then we can sit and talk about next week about, where do we go from here and blah, blah, blah. And, God, if they come in, they win, it's a whole different story, but it doesn't line up, Chris, at all. I think it's the first ass whooping of the year.
So, the Gophers are bringing back their former offensive coordinator. They're working out the details right now, finalizing that deal, which we knew last week that they had fired the coordinator, and I think that's a good look. I bet you Tanner Morgan is very happy. The guy was definitely creative. He found a way to move the ball, yet we still ran the hell out of the ball too. We just weren't fourth in attempts behind the military schools and triple option. So I like that. The top 3 guys that you thought would go out have accepted Senior Bowls. Both defensive ends, they've been here for 4 years apiece. Actually, I think one of them 5. They're both gone starting, so that is what it is. And then Daniel, is gone too because he took the big old 6'8", 380. We were talking about it off air how once they get him at the combine, he's already graded from like first to third round for sure. So you kind of knew he would go. We'll definitely keep you posted though on who's returning beyond what we already know. Any items that you want to talk about or anything like that? I mean, you know what was surprising, Aaron? We had like a top 20, top 30 defense. If you look at a variety of metrics, only one player made the All Big Ten. Our offense pretty much sucked a lot of the year, considering. Now, there's reasons for it, no doubt. But we got, all of the offensive line did make either first, second, or third. And they've been playing a long time. A good chunk of them have already been on those teams for the Big Ten. But that was kind of a shocker that we didn't get a little bit more in there on defense. But it is what it is. What do you think about bringing the new coordinator back? Anything else, sir?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about that last week, and we thought, I don't know if it was you or me that had the genius thought about bringing Shiraka back. He went to Penn State, and then, it didn't work out there, and Sanford had been hired here, and we didn't know if there's bad blood between Shiraka and PJ, but apparently not, because we were right on the money there, and he'll be coming back, which I'm kind of happy about. I thought they worked good together offensively. I think there's a little more, I guess, I don't want to say innovative, but just a little more balanced maybe is the word to use.
Yes.
Like you said, we kind of ran the ball so much. And we got a good offensive line to do it, but, to keep a defense honest, you got to be able to do both. And, it was good to see that, some of the guys got accolades. I don't think the line is as good as, I thought it would be, but I think it was a pretty good Big Ten offensive line. And defensively, I think we didn't get a lot of names just because they rotated so many guys. I mean, almost on every level of the defense was rotated. I think maybe the linebackers were the only ones that really stayed in, Gibbons and Sorry-Myron. But they had, Oliver would spell people, and there's a Thomas Rush and those guys. So it was kind of rotated all year. I don't know if they got enough snaps. Anybody really got enough snaps to be maybe.
Well, Chris Autumnell got enough snaps apparently.
Yeah, that's a good point. He was hurt for most of the season, but I like the direction, man. I think it's going good, and I like that they rotate a lot of guys on defense. If you have the players, might as well use them. And now let's talk about the bowl a little bit. The bowl selection. There's a lot of people upset about that we ended up in a second-rate or third-rate bowl, and people feel that we should be in maybe a better bowl game. I don't know where I stand on that. I think maybe if you don't lose to Bowling Green, you got a chance to maybe get a bigger bowl. But I don't know what that really has to do with this bowl selection committee. But I don't think anybody's real happy about the bowl that they got. And the name slips my mind right now because the bowls change so much every year. But it's in Arizona. I think they're playing West Virginia, and it's a pretty good opponent. I think they have a good chance to win.
It has everything to do with the Bowling Green, and it's deserved. If we're 9-3, we close the year. Whether we go to obviously that has nothing to do with going to the Big Ten Conference Final because it's non-conference. But we talked about it then, how this stuff burns you when it comes to the bowl. Penn State got a New Year's Day bowl against a ranked solid Arkansas club. That was our spot. If we don't lose to Bowling Green, we're 9-3, and we just beat, what were they, the 14th ranked team? That would have put us it would have been number 24 against number 21 Arkansas. We would have gotten that bowl. That was our bowl, but we decided to lose to Bowling Green. So people can get mad or whatever, but that is deserved because you can't. That's part of that rankings and quality wins and shitty losses. And Penn State, yeah, they're 7-5, but look at their schedule compared to ours. They played tougher teams, and they didn't lose to Bowling Green. So we, unfortunately, even though it ended great, we would have been ranked, and we would have gotten that spot. So literally, it came down to what we thought. But even back then, that's going to hurt us. It's going to come back to bite us. And no, it didn't bite us within the Big Ten race. No, that's true. Because of the non-conference, but man, it definitely it reared its ugly head, man, like those type of losses do.
Well, I mean, Here's the deal. Here's my overall view on the Bowling Green losses. Though it's a huge detriment for this season, I think it's one of those steps a program takes as it rises up. Like maybe next year there's no way we lose a game like Bowling Green because everybody knows what happens if that happens. And, it's like, okay, so you're building. Here's a pitfall. Okay, now you know that pitfall. We'll rise above it. And it just seems like the program's still on the way up. And I'm not that upset about the direction of the program, but that Bowling Green loss is an albatross. You're right, and you would have had a better bowl game, I think, if you hadn't lost to them or Illinois. Illinois was another bad loss that Illinois is rising, but they're not there yet, and so I think that still counts as a bad loss. So I think they got a bowl that they probably were going to get, and PJ's name probably didn't help to get them a better one. So I think it is what it is, and you play the bowl and hopefully you win and you get ready for next season. And I think that's probably, in the end, it'll end up being a blessing more than a curse.
I don't think it'll be either or, but I do agree with what you're saying about on the rise, no doubt about it. But it's all slated. A lot of people just on Twitter, don't follow college football really. They just started getting into it because Fleck. It's all mapped out for you real easy. That's the reason why we're not in that bowl game, unfortunately. The Illinois loss, that would have, that was Big Ten wise, man. If we didn't lose that, we would have been in the Big Ten championship, even if we lost to Iowa. So you're right. It's still on the rise. It's so close. And now we get to see a lot of these guys, some of these guys Fleck brought in. No doubt he did. But some of them, because they've been here for 5 or 6 years, they were already here. And even some of the guys that were like Winfield, variety of guys, linebackers, defensive, they all improved while they were here. I mean, Winfield came in good, but, a lot of them improved when they got here. Look at Johnson and what he did when he was here. Bateman was just a stud. But, yes, we're going to now see Aaron, getting those higher recruiting classes that we got with that Auburn, that 11-2, and that Auburn, Penn State, and all that. We're going to start to see that. I'm 100% on you with that about it's still a rising program. There's no doubt about it. And people freaking out about Iowa and Wisconsin. And since the 90s, they've been pretty damn good, man, and they've been putting out first, second, third line, offense and defensive lines forever. It's really tough. That the 2005 or 2006 was the last time we had 2 offensive linemen on the all Big Ten team. Only one of them first team. So it takes longer than you think, or than not you, but a lot of the audience thinks, because this is a Vikings town in college football. Although it's steeped in tradition, it's kind of like why our dads and uncles were into it more, Minnesotans speaking, because they had seen a lot of success as a kid. All the way up through the 60s and even into the 70s, I think, was the last Big Ten championship. But I'm with you, dude. It's on the up and up. And we were able to duck Miami, USC, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, like the huge jobs, dude. And so Flex staying put, I now believe the next, chunk of years he's here, it would have to be like some kind of crazy job. I mean, if he made it through this, it's on. So I'm really, really happy. We'll be back next Monday, and let's hope. Well, hold on. Yeah, we'll be back next Monday. Let's hope the Vikes can do the 2-2s and 2-2s and just make the stretch of this last part of the season, fun to watch instead of, here we go again. But, if they lose next week, then the next week, let's say they lose to Chicago, that first Chicago game, then you could start to go, okay, well, it wouldn't be the worst thing if we lose, right? Because then you start to look at your draft stuff. Any last words? I'll give you the final word here. You can take us home.
No, I think you nailed it. And, just maybe a little Gopher note here that we lost 2 quarterbacks. I think we might have brought that up last week. I don't think we've got news to where they've transferred to, but they entered the porthole. And so now you've got, Tanner and some younger kids. And I think he's got a top guy coming in for the 2022 class. But so it'll be more Tanner, but around Tanner will be some new faces, and that'll be good to see.
we got a pocket passer, top 30 pocket passer here already from last year. In the country coming in, and like you said, another one coming in. So that's to be expected, though, with Tanner coming back. You're right, Clark, and the super senior too. So we'll see. All right, we'll be back next Monday. Peace.